Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Comics Lair. We're sponsored by Heroes Aren't Hard to Find and Heroes Convention. I'm your host, Nancy Northcott. This panel will discuss the CW Stargirl program, and this is a spoiler alert. All episodes that have aired to date will be fair game for the discussion. So if you are not current on Stargirl, you might want to wait and watch this panel when you have caught up. So with that said, I'd like to ask everyone on the panel to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their interest in Stargirl. Elizabeth, do you want to go first?
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Flynn, and I have been a DC fan for most of my life. And when the CW series came up, I was really interested, and then Stargirl came. And Stargirl was way different from the other CW series. And I was fascinated from the first. And I can't wait for people to talk about this right here.
Okay, Darin.
Darin Kennedy. I write sci-fi, not really. I write more like fantasy, paranormal thriller, that kind of stuff. But I read a lot of Marvel and DC growing up. And when the CW started with Arrow, we all started, my little writer group, we all started watching Arrow like every week. And then we would get together on Wednesday night and talk about it. And then when The Flash came out, absolutely. And then as it's progressed, watch Supergirl, watch some of the Legends. I need to catch up on all of those. But Arrow was my favorite, but then The Flash by far, because I love the Flash Rogues Gallery. And that one won for me until Stargirl. And when you get to see the entire Justice Society on the screen in their glory, not for very long, unfortunately, spoiler alert for the first 5 minutes of episode 1, but you get to see Our Man and Dr. Fate and all these people fighting Solomon Grundy and Icicle. You're like, this is awesome. And it just got better from there. So I'm in, and I never read Stargirl, and I wasn't a big Justice Society person, but I am digging this show.
Okay, Marisa.
Yeah, hi, I am Marisa Wolf. I'm a science fiction and fantasy author. I like to find all the little parts of genre and play in them. I read comics as a kid up through college. And so I never read the Stargirl. That happened right about the time I went to college. But I have loved the DC shows. I was more of a Marvel girl, not going to lie, growing up. But my dad was DC, so it's been great. And we didn't have cool writer conversations, but we had cool dad-daughter conversations when the Arrowverse launched. And those were super fun. And I really enjoyed Stargirl. It's probably my favorite of the DC shows right now. Superman and Lois, but Stargirl is right there with it.
Well, I have actually, to be honest up front, only watched the first episode. And I did that because of this panel. Certain people, for example, Darin Kennedy, have been telling me I need to watch that show. And now, having seen the first episode, I see why. So I'll be learning a lot from the discussion tonight as well. So let's start with when you first discovered the show. I have a feeling I know what the answers are, but let's go over this anyway. When you first discovered the show, and were you a fan right away, or did you need some time to warm to it? Darin, you want to start?
Liked it right away. I think just like they cast Supergirl, I think almost perfectly, they have cast their Stargirl impeccably. She is that there may be other people out there who could play that role, but Brett Bessinger is probably as good as anybody could do. And then her supporting cast is awesome. I like the costumes. The special effects are what you would expect from you're not going to get, Marvel Cinematic Universe level special effects, but for a superhero show on the CW, not bad. But the big thing I think is the writing. It's on point. And is it a little teen angsty sometimes? Sure. Do I enjoy a little teen angsty sometimes? Sure. That's fine. But as far as the writing, we're going to get into this more later. When it's supposed to be happy, it's happy. When it's supposed to be funny, it's funny. And when they're trying to make you scared of the bad guys for a little comic book show, bad guys are pretty scary. I'll let somebody else talk.
Okay. Marisa?
It's fun. I thought right from jump, it was fun. And I was falling a little bit out of love with the Flash when Stargirl started, because they were having a lot less fun, and it was a lot of misery all the time. And then Stargirl was fun. And even though the teen angst was there, it knew all along it was teen angst. It wasn't trying to make it like Riverdale heavy teen angst. Like it was
Oh
just
my
teen
God.
angst. Right. Uh, exactly. So it was fun. The people on it were having fun. I really liked like the things that I found a little annoying at first really kind of grew into themselves. So we might talk about the brother at one point, and at first I was like, he's a little over the top. This is a little too much, but he became super charming and a super fun part. Yeah, it's a very fun show, and I agree with Darin. The bad guys are bad guys. So if
They're
you're like trying, yeah, no, go
I
ahead,
was-
Darin. They're legit. Sorry, I think I had a pause. Yeah.
They're legit scary for an 8 o'clock primetime TV show,
Yeah.
especially
Teen
season 2.
angst. High school is not the bad guy. Yes. Yeah.
Elizabeth, do you have anything to add?
Let's see now. I agree with both Darin and Marisa. When I first, again, like you, Darin, when I started with Arrow, I said, oh, I really like this. My husband, not so much, but, he's also a diehard DC guy. So we watched it. But, then things went along. He was much happier with The Flash than I was, because nothing can ever beat Irv Novik's art. I see The Flash, it has to have Irv Novik's art. But, but my favorite was Legends of Tomorrow after the first season until Stargirl came along. Because Stargirl was, again, this is meant to be, children's fare. And it was. Forget about, the thing about Riverdale is you just want to slap all those quote unquote kids. When you have 35-year-olds playing kids, it loses the charm. The thing about Stargirl is, again, they are children. They're teenagers, but they're still children. And I was, commenting before the taping started about the scene in which you see these kids, and they are kids dressed up in their uniforms coming through the dusk. And my husband said, they look like they're dressed up for Halloween. I said, yes, that's what it is. It reminds us that they may have these abilities and they may have good intentions, but they are children. They are not dressed up in super suits as much as they can. But it is a fun story, and they are children, and they are meeting evil, possibly for the first time.
I think it almost falls at the intersection of everybody loves superhero shows and everybody loves Stranger Things. Let's just jam it together and have fun. And that's what they did. And it's 2 seasons straight, just worked. I'm eager to see what they do in the 3rd season, but they let fly some hints at the end of season 2. So I'll be back.
Well, they have evil neighbors now.
Right.
That's going to be
That
so
is so
funny.
charming. Yes.
Isn't the next one? Isn't the next season called Frenemies? Isn't that what they said?
Uh-huh.
Is
Yes,
season
I
3?
believe so.
Frenemies, and I'm
Yep.
like, sweet,
Yeah. Sold.
sold.
Yes.
Well, Marisa and Darin, do you want to pick up on what Elizabeth said about the actors actually looking like, well, not children, but teenage young people children?
Youths.
They're youths. My husband looked up the ages for one of them because he's like, I think they're like actually teenagers. And the girl playing what is it? Is it Wildcat? Black Cat's on my brain. Marvel. But she's playing Wildcat. I think she's like 22 or 23, but she looks like a teenager. Like they all genuinely look like teenagers, and I love it. And I'm not gonna lie, one of my favorite characters is Cindy Berman, Shiv. And she is such a good, complicated bad guy, frenemy, pumped about that new season, and also teenage girl. Like she has all of the things in such a great way, like in a way that Buffy could get to, like at its best. just all the time, all the cylinders. So I like that.
Darin, did you want to add anything to that?
I'm looking up all their ages. It says that Breck Basinger and Wildcat are both 22 right now. Okay, Stargirl's 22. Beth Chapel, Dr. Midnight, she's 23. I'm getting conflicting reports about how old Wildcat is, because this says 29, but I found somewhere else it says 22. So a little confusing, but but they're all still legit pretty young, as opposed to Riverdale, where you're like the nerdiest kid at Riverdale is better looking than the best looking person in my graduating class of high school.
Ever. Yes, 100%.
Yeah, I was like, that guy's still a 9.2.
Yeah, right. Still top tier. Well done. Yeah.
Still top tier. So
Yeah.
That's funny.
We know there's a show that shall remain nameless that I've been watching where one of the characters is supposed to be about 16. And every time I look at, she's being played by a woman. There's no, I don't fault the actor, because I mean, she does a good job with the part. It's just that she doesn't look 16 years old. And
Because she's a grown up. Yeah.
you know, Elizabeth.
Recording in progress.
You have a little bit of a tech issue there.
I always have tech issues.
Okay. Oh, I like the Wonder Woman. I don't know.
That's
if
a
the
great
pickles can
background.
See that, but yeah.
So are you saying now we have Duo Damsel on our chat here?
There. Sorry about this.
No
That's
worries.
okay. That's all right. Tech stuff happens.
It really
We are-
does.
Unfortunately, dependent upon tech at the moment.
Accurate. Oh no, have we lost her entirely?
I don't think so. I think she's going to pop
Okay.
up in front of
In
the.
the Wonder Woman.
Diana in just a second.
Oh, there's
Yay! There you are.
I
Awesome.
liked your teleportation trick.
Very
That was
nice.
cool.
That's cool. You're muted though. We can't hear you.
Sorry, it's wrapping paper, actually, literally.
Nice.
A mutual friend of Nancy and mine, Val.
It
Nice.
looks awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah, I really like that. So, Stargirl. When in the first episode, they implied pretty heavily that Pat, the stepfather, had been in Blue Valley for something connected with the JSA when he met Courtney's mother. And so I thought it was interesting that he moved his family there. And I was wondering, did he know the Injustice Society members were living there? Was he thinking it was closer? So, I mean, for me, just in that first episode, it raised a lot of questions. So what do you all think about that?
They covered that later on.
Yeah, they answered the questions.
Well, I figured they would, but initially it was interesting that you would move your family to this place where these lethal people might be living who really don't like you much.
They're frenemies. Actually, yes. You know, you would only do it if you were absolutely certain they were all gone,
Mhm.
because otherwise it would be a tactical error.
Yeah. Pat's car is an interesting vehicle with its ability to affect what some might call a transformation. What did you think about that when it popped up, and how have you felt about it if it's popped up as we go on? Marisa, you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, so I think what my favorite thing about Pat's car, I'm trying to remember what his car did in the first episode, but I do know, so he runs a garage, like that's his day life, which has led to some very fun stories pretty quickly, in terms of him meeting the other mechanic in town who helps him work on his giant robot, spoiler. So I like his car in that it gets you ready to meet Stripe, his giant robot, that he uses as a mech to help fight crime. And it's delightful. Some of my favorite scenes with the son and the dad, and Pat working on the robot together. Because I always love when you've got a family with superpowered and non-superpowered people and how they find their roles and how they work together. And the robot and the car and Pat's just sort of mechanical know-how plays a huge role. And so I love the setup of that with his like very nice classic car, which fits in well in the feels very frozen in time Blue Valley. But.
Yes.
Elizabeth, did you want?
And the character you mentioned that's the other mechanic in town, I love that guy because like nothing phases him. Like he walks in, sees like this like 20-foot tall robot and goes, I think I can put a better chainsaw on the arm. It's not like, oh my gosh, you have a robot. It's, I think that could use a flamethrower. And you're just like,
you need a flamethrower.
So funny.
I agree.
Yeah. Yes.
He's great.
You know, this is not a show that if you're going to require, you know, a lot of hard proof and a lot of hard logic, you know, you're not going to like this very much. But that guy, that mechanic whose name I can't remember right now,
either.
It's just a matter of, okay, just roll with it.
Yep.
Another interesting thing that we haven't covered yet is the very interesting that there is the stuff that the adults are dealing with and then the stuff that the kids are dealing with. And then every once in a while, the kids are dealing with the adults or vice versa. But a lot of times the story is always working at two levels because you got Stargirl's mom working for Icicle, and there's the whole adult thing between her and Pat and everything that sort of impacts Stargirl. And then you got all the stuff happening at the high school, but it's only when you get towards the end of each season that the adults and kids, again, it's like Stranger Things. You know, Stranger Things has 3 levels. It's got what the kids are dealing with, what the teens are dealing with, and what the adults are dealing with. So Stranger Things and Stargirl both do that really well. And then as the season goes on, all of the different levels of story, like the different layers of cake, somebody puts a knife through it, and then you start getting icing from the top all the way down, and you're like, ooh, that's kind of cool. But that's another thing that I really like about the show.
Well, speaking of the adults and the kids interacting, how do you like the family dynamic on the show? What do you think of that, Elizabeth?
Oh, I think it works well. Now you have the entire thing of the blended family, of course, a big thing. And of course, as Marisa was saying, the dynamic of the powered versus the non-powered. And, the mother being oblivious to it all, at the beginning, and then it being a huge shock that weird things are happening and she had been absorbed with their own problems. So you saw that and I said, sure, okay. Again, it's like the mechanic saying, okay. Looks fine.
The single best, maybe one of the single best family moments of the entire thing is the first time their home gets invaded and Stargirl and I think Shiv just destroy the place and everybody's mad at her. But then it's at the end of the first season and Sportsmaster and his wife show up and are there to kill them all. And Stargirl beats their ass right in front of her mom. And at the end, you think her mom is going to go, oh my gosh, it was so dangerous. And her mom just looks at her and goes, that was awesome. And I was like, what a wonderful, wonderful moment for that mother and daughter. Because you just knew she was going to go, I told you it was too dangerous to be a superhero, blah, 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 blah. And instead, she beams with pride. And I was like, that was an awesome moment. Good job, writer. I loved it.
Agreed. Yeah, they really didn't beat the horse too hard of when the mom found out. Like, I think she had a very appropriate response, unlike often in shows like these where the person who gets read in finally is like, that's it, I can never trust you again, Lena Luthor.
Oh, that really
and
irritates
everything's
me when
ruined.
they do that.
Oh,
Yeah.
so upsetting. Like, instead it was, she was mad at Pat for not telling her, which was, you know what, fair. Like, he was the adult.
Yes. Exactly.
That was a thing. And then they talked it out and they got through it within, I think, one episode. I was a little disappointed when this last season, they're like, we have to keep this secret from Courtney. I was like, have you learned nothing? Have you learned literally nothing? Because they did such a good job of it the first time. But go ahead, Darin.
What was I going to say? The thing that made it work was the mom goes from, oh my gosh, my daughter is a superhero, she's going to be in danger. And then all of a sudden, the very next scene almost, she's at work and she goes, oh my God, my boss is a super villain. It's a good thing that my daughter is a superhero because I'm in danger. And then she's like, hey, Court, like the ice guy, yeah, I work for him. He's like my boss, and he's kind of hitting on me too. What am I supposed to do with this? And all of that just worked. But that's what I mean. That's where the adult stuff and the kid stuff starts to overlap, because she's like, you're working for Kent? Yeah. He's hitting on you? Oh yeah. And then Pat's like, what? All of that was great. All of that was great.
Yes.
Well, you know, one of the things that's good about Superman and Lois is that they do occasionally address the blended super and non-super nature of their family. There was a lovely scene, I think it was last season, between Lois and Jonathan, where she said, you know, we're the non-powered people in a family of super people, and we have to stick together. And then actually, since I didn't do a spoiler alert for Superman and Lois, I won't mention something that happened just this past week. But I think if you have a family that's blended like that and you don't use it in the story, I mean, it's kind of like low hanging fruit. It's just sitting there. I mean, why wouldn't you use that at some point?
Yeah.
So I have to say, so far I've only seen one plot hole that I kind of was like, ugh. So we have Fiddler 1 gets whacked, right?
Right.
And then her son, Cindy Berman, says, here's the violin. And the very next day, he's like a virtuoso level violinist who can like play all. I'm like, you might be able to shoot some sonic blasts, but I don't think you're going to be able to play a violin by someone, you know, he plays a tuba. And
they're not the same.
Yeah, I was a brass player. I know how brass instruments work, and I wasn't bad. But if someone threw a violin at me and said, you're the daughter of a violin-wielding supervillain, here, play this, it would not sound the way his sounded, because I was like, who taught him how to play that thing?
That's
well,
funny.
I took violin, and I can tell you, taking violin, you will still not get anything that sounds like something that does not sound like a cat being tortured.
In a day, yeah.
But when we were talking earlier, I thought that each villain was particularly menacing in their own way, but they didn't feel like bwahaha menacing like some of the Flash villains. Like after a while, you're kind of like, why are you so mad? It's just it's okay. But like, you know, the Iceman is just icy. I want to do the right. I want to do what I think is right. And then Sportsmaster and what is his wife's name? What's her?
Oh man,
she's like a tigress. Is it tigress?
Yes,
Yeah,
it sounds right.
Sounds right.
Yeah, like they're just like, we enjoy hurting people, and I'm like, okay. And then you got the gambler dude. He's like, I'm just a greedy jerk. Got it?
Yeah, tigress.
But then you get to the second season, man, Shade, that guy is awesome. He's like one of my favorite actors. Like since Keaton, since Nicholson and Keaton, he's one of my favorite actors to play a supervillain ever, because every time he walks on the scene, I'm like, you are menacing, you are funny, you are entertaining, and you're clearly in command of any situation you're in, and I love watching you.
And he's layered. You
He's
know,
layered.
he's
So
layered.
cool. And then Eclipso's like legit scary.
Yeah. Oh man.
Legit and creepy. The kid that they got to play Eclipso
Oh wow.
is a
Yes.
phenomenal actor. I was
Yes.
creeped out every time. That was this very last season, Nancy. I cannot wait
Oh,
to get
you mean
to it.
Kid Eclipso? Whenever he
Yes.
turns little boy.
Yes.
Yeah, that was like straight out of Stephen King. I'm like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's a gifted actor right there.
He's got a future. He's like, any movie by Stephen King, just let me go be the psychic boy. You've
Ready?
you've got this.
Yes.
Well, we're into talking about groups and villains and heroes. How did you feel about the recruitment of the new JSA and the development of those characters? Did that work for you? Would you have tweaked it somehow? What do you think?
Let's put on a show.
What's that?
Let's put on the show. It reminded me of Andy Rooney, saying, let's put on a show in the back of the barn. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. It was, again, this is one of those things that you do have to sort of roll with. And because, Courtney was basically saying, you could be a superhero. You could be a superhero. A miniature Oprah in some ways.
Yeah.
Well, from the way I see it is, so there's two shows right now, and one of them works for me and one of them does not. You put Yolanda in the Wildcat suit and she can suddenly kick some tail, but there is evidence that there's some stuff in the Wildcat suit that helps you be able to fight. And she's already a gymnast. So I kind of bought that. Whereas the show, the one DC show we haven't mentioned is Batwoman, which I really, really wanted to like. But the first season is I was in military school and now I have a bat suit and I can kick tail. And I was like, that's fine. But in the second season, I'm a random human being. I have a bat suit and I can kick tail. And I'm like, the whole point of Batman or Bat whoever is that I trained for 15, 20 years to human perfection so that I can fight crime. It's not, I put on a bulletproof suit and now I kick tail. And I can't watch that show. I want to watch that show, but I don't like it. I don't want to watch it. But Yolanda in the Wildcat suit works for me. And then the fact that Beth as Dr. Midnight basically is the brains of the team, and she punches someone every once in a while, but she's basically there to like figure stuff out, which is what she should be doing. And then Our Man is literally Our Man's son. So whenever he takes the stuff, he gets super strong. So all of them work for me because none of them are like going from rando person to I kick tail for no apparent reason. They all stay within their lane.
Yeah. I love the team. I love the intro team. I didn't like Courtney as much as the other characters, not because the actress, she's super charming. She does a great job. Courtney was just so, I love you. And now you're a superhero and we're best friends. And that was a lot.
It was a good
for me,
impersonation
at first.
That was an excellent impersonation, by the way. Good job.
Thanks. And that's what happened, right? Like, and so that was a little bit like, oh God, but also so teenagery. Like you meet somebody, you hit for best friends. Absolutely. Like that's how it works. And so you have this big secret, like a cosmic staff, and there's a threat out there. Why not get your best friends involved? I love Our Man Junior's attitude at all times. He is hilarious to me, and his and Beth's dynamic, my favorite. So I really like how that played out. I do see it getting a little bit old. Like Courtney meets a new Green Lantern, and Courtney meets this other person, and Courtney meets this other person, and she's like, yeah, absolutely, you should be here. We are best friends now. Let's go. And she doesn't see any world in which that might not work for other people, which is part of her charm, but also part of like, Courtney, this is not This is not what you think it is.
All right. She's a youngster.
Okay.
That's the
Exactly.
thing. She's a youngster.
Mhm.
So do y'all know who the new Green Lantern is? Do y'all know that from the comics?
I had to look it up. I didn't know.
Yes.
She's Jade. And
Right.
Yeah.
Jade's brother is Obsidian. And that
Right.
person who she keeps looking for at that school with the really creepy lady who goes and talks to the person at the end of the last episode. I love the creepy lady, but that boy that she's looking for, that's Obsidian. So I think we get Obsidian in season 3.
I think
That's
you're
going to
right.
be pretty slick. I'll watch that.
There is a DC Comics character called Jade. She's an assassin.
Not that Jade.
It's a different Jade.
They
Okay.
reuse names, you know.
Okay.
If we use
Yeah.
names, but you're thinking of Jade from the Teen Titans. Let me make sure
Well,
I'm
yeah,
not.
from
There's
that.
a different Jade.
No, her name's Jade.
Yeah,
Because I had to
there's also-
Google her. I knew, yeah, I vaguely knew who she was, but not enough. I had to go to the Wikipedia.
This is the Jade from Infinity Incorporated. Different character.
Okay. Well, speaking of we're the best friends and we're going to fight together. What a lot of superhero groups have is a found family vibe, not just we're friends or, oh, we're BFFs now, but really you're in each other's blood and bone and you'll go to the wall for each other. Is this group shaping up that way, or is it kind of taking a different path?
They definitely went down the second season where you have to break everybody up and make everybody mad at each other so that they come back together at the end and are stronger than ever thing. They definitely went down that path and brought Cindy Berman along when they came back the second time, which I was like, oh,
Love
Cindy,
it.
you're going to be a good guy now. Sort of.
Kind of, yeah.
You're going to be a quasi good guy. I'll watch that because I like me some Cindy Berman. She's hilarious. She's not to go back to Riverdale again, but she's very she's the Cheryl Blossom of
Yes.
she's the Cheryl Blossom for sure of Stargirl, the baddest of the bad,
Oh
who
my
does
gosh.
something nice
She
every
does it
once
so
in a
well.
while.
So just to keep you on the hook, I feel like it's less of a found family than like Firefly or something that you get all the people together, or even like Titans, which I'm finally watching. It's more partly because Courtney gets closer to her own family, so her family is really important, and then partly I think because it is so high school, like they're less found family and more like we are a tight knit group of friends. Except, as I say that out loud, what's his name? What's the kid's name who plays Our Man? Rick, right? Rick something.
I think he's Rick Tyler.
Rick, yeah. So Rick and Yolanda have like some pretty unhappy family backgrounds, and so I think it's interesting because it's sort of like found family for them, but Courtney has her family, and so it's kind of like bringing her friends into, well, I don't know. I'm kind of talking myself in circles. It feels less found family and more a tight group of friends.
Well,
But
they sort of are joining her family because they had the whole Christmas family thing. Was that at the end of season 1 or season 2?
Yeah.
Season 1, I
I
think.
think 1. Yeah, I think.
I mean, that nice little scene of Christmas when they
where they're at her house.
Yeah.
And,
That
and
was
everybody's
right in
there
the plot.
together.
Yeah. I wish they'd do more with that. Like Beth needs some of that. Rick definitely needs some of that. Yolanda's family is awful to her at all times. So
Am I remembering correctly that Beth's mom and dad decided to reconcile when they found out her daughter was a superhero and they're going to get together and sort of sponsor her in her superhero activities? That's going to be funny next season. That's going to be hilarious. What it took to bring mom and dad back together. I go fight crime. We're back together.
we're back together again. Yes. And Artemis's parents love her desperately. Like I am interested to see if like Artemis and Cindy Berman end up on the Justice Society.
I love them because they're like so fiercely protective and loving to their daughter, but just want to kill anybody else. And that's what makes them interesting.
They're
like
protective.
they're like super parents that like, yay, good job, good touchdown. Let's go kill people.
Let's go murder everyone.
Let's
Yeah.
go murder other. Let's go murder others. For the
Elizabeth?
fun of it.
Elizabeth,
Why not?
did you want to add anything?
No, I'm just enjoying, the conversation.
Okay. Well, let's switch gears a little bit. What is each of your favorite episodes and why? Elizabeth, you want to start?
First, I have to think of a favorite episode because
Yeah, that's a question. It's never fun to go first.
now the one that pops up is probably the one in which nope, I have to think about it.
Okay. Anybody else?
Darin probably has one.
I'm literally scrolling through a list of all the episodes. I think the first season finale, they're all good. I usually just DVR stuff now. Stargirl was the first appointment TV I've had in years where it's like I watched Stargirl live because I couldn't wait. Everything else, I'll watch Flash later. I'll watch everything else later. I watched Stargirl and like, so I've loved them all. I really liked how they let everybody have their moment, including the kid, the boy, the brother. In the first season finale, everybody got to do something important. And I liked that because everybody got a chance to feel like they were a part of the team. Even if you're not really a part of the team, you're still part of the team. And I liked that. So I'm going to go season 1 finale.
Okay. Anybody else?
I can finally remember one that really stood out.
Nice.
It is the brother and having found the magic pen.
Thunderbolt pin.
Yes, and I just remember having the conversation with my husband, going back and forth about what was that in the original, back in the 40s, and we went back and forth, and saying, say you, wasn't that it? That sounds familiar. But again, it was the impulsive nature of children and saying, I'm really hungry. So, they have something, they get lots and lots of food. But then they realize that maybe this is not the most productive thing for them to do. And the brother, gives over, the use of the pen. It is a pen, right?
Yep.
Yes, it's a pen.
Yeah.
To his fellow newspaper carrier kid. Now, I thought that was nice. And it was, wow, this is too much power, sort of. I will give it to somebody else who might use it well. Oh, isn't that cute?
Yeah. I really liked the episode where we found out what was going on with Cindy Berman. I'm apparently a Cindy Berman stan at this point. But when you actually go into her memories and you see what happened with her mom and that her dad experimented on her. And I think that's the first time you see her shiv come out of her wrist, maybe. But I think just the whole Cindy Berman reveal, it might have been more than one episode, but there was definitely one where you see what's going on with her and it's really affecting. It was very well done.
Well, switching gears a little bit, if you could change one thing about the show, what would it be and why? Darin, do you want to start?
Actually, I don't even know. I think that even the season length is about right. They both times they've been able to tell sort of a beginning, middle, end. Longer seasons mean I would get to watch more episodes, but I don't know if making them longer would make them better. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a good one for that one.
Okay. Marisa or Elizabeth?
Marisa?
I definitely got tired of Courtney being obsessed with the idea that Starman had to be her dad for her to be a real hero. It made sense for a while in the first season. Then it got a little old, and then she realized he definitely wasn't her dad. But then in the beginning of the second season, it deflated her. She felt like she wasn't a real hero because of it. And the whole time I was like, girl, the staff chose you. It doesn't matter. Like, get over it. But again, she's a teenager. It's a thing.
Well, I found that
yeah.
Yeah, I found that interesting because it is a variation of the old thing about young girls saying, "I'm secretly a princess. Someday I will find out," and that was this particular version of it.
Yeah. It just got a little old for me. But again, like, it's such a good show. This is very minor. Like, I wouldn't change the storyline. I would just maybe not get into it as deeply as they did.
Okay.
I came up with one.
Okay.
A couple of the things in the second season that they had to do a whole lot of mental gymnastics to break everybody apart. They wanted them to all be apart, but like the reason Yolanda's not with him is her family said, you have to stop hanging around with her. So when season 3 starts, I have no doubt that they will completely forget that Yolanda's family didn't want her to be around. And then our man beat the snot out of his uncle and then got thrown in jail. And then I about guarantee you next season, or maybe they won't, but I just feel like the repercussions of the stuff that they had to do in season 2 to force them apart and isolate Stargirl are not going to, like, that would have real world repercussions for years. You almost killed your uncle. You were told by your family you are grounded like forever. All of a sudden everything's going to be carte blanche, everything's fine. And but I don't know, maybe I should have more faith. Maybe they're going to nail it next season and I'm just wrong. But
they're doing a good job of developing something, putting it in place, and then having it pay off later on. So I think that possibly, yes, something has to happen because of what he did to his uncle. If nothing else, protective custody. I mean, social services takes the kid away. He's not much of a kid, of course, but anyway.
Yeah, but my question is, because for Rick to get out of jail, Pat did something shady to the uncle. Unclear if he just beat him until he recanted his story, or if he straight up murdered him. I'm guessing the first one because of all the.
He was in the hospital, and he did it in the hospital. So I just figured that it was, intimidation. It might have been blackmail. It might have been something that, as my husband put it, he was the one person you could always depend on. This makes him not as likable.
Pat took a moral hit. Pat took a moral hit to fix that one. Yeah. So maybe that's where they're going to go, is he's going to go like, you're not some hero. You came into a hospital and beat up somebody that was in a hospital.
Yeah. And that'd be interesting because I think I'm interested to see what they do with frenemies, because what's her name? Courtney had such a black and white, you can't kill and be a hero. And she really struggled with that because she loves Yolanda so much. And Wildcat did in fact cause a death. And I think that will be a very interesting thing for them to continue to grapple with, of how gray being a hero can be, and how gray being a villain can be, especially if Cindy is going to be on the team and Artemis is going to be on the team and their neighbors are Sportsmaster and Tigress. I think that'll be really interesting, and it'll be interesting because Pat now is, like you said, Darin, like Pat now is tainted, because he did it. He very much did what Icicle did. He did the ends justify the means. And I don't think the JSA will agree with that. So
do you want Darin's prediction for season 3?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So we have identified who the villains for season 3 are. Where do they work?
At the school.
At a school. Mm-hmm. All of our main characters are what?
School children.
Children. Yes. All of our main characters are children, and our bad guys work at a school that are trying to get Obsidian, whatever his name is, to come back and be at their school. So if you have a cast full of kids, some of them on the one side and some of them on the other side, about to go up against a school, I think that we're going to have both our team and the Cindy Berman and the Artemis, etc., up against kids from this school, because Obsidian's not going to be the only they're not trying to get one superpowered kid when they don't have other superpowered kids. And if you read New Mutants back in the 80s, that's what you're going to have is you're going to have Professor X's New Mutants versus the Hellfire Club Hellions. And I think it's going to be mid-80s New Mutants all over again. That's what I think we're heading for. That's what I would write if I was in charge of it. But that's just me.
Well, Marisa,
I would watch that.
That's what I want to watch.
Yeah,
that's what I want to watch.
I mean, yeah, I love the New Mutants. I will tell you, one of the highlights of my year so far this year is just the announcement that they're continuing the 90s X-Men cartoon. The 80s and 90s X-Men, my jam. All the spin-offs, the New Mutants and the Hellions. That was some prime storytelling. I think that would be really cool. And we got a couple scenes ish like that, right? With when the baby bad guys and the baby good guys were fighting in the halls of the school. Like, I thought that was, it was interrupted because Eclipse was the big bad for sure. But yeah, I think that would be super fun.
Season 3, everybody that was fighting in the school is going to be on one team. And we're going to be
one
fighting,
side, yeah.
And they're gonna pick out a bunch of characters from DC Comics, put them in teenage roles, stick them at that school, and sick them on our people under the leadership of that creepy looking dude and creepy woman. And that's season 3, and I'm here for it.
I'm here for it. Yeah, I love it.
Elizabeth, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I'm not sure whether they're going to do it quite like that, but I can see them doing that. But I really hope that they think of something original.
Well, speaking of the Hellions and fights and that kind of thing, we really haven't talked a lot about the villains, the Young Injustice Society. What's your impression of their dynamic as they go through the stories?
They didn't really get a lot of air. Basically, yeah, it was Cindy like, hey, do you know what your dad did? Hey, do you know what's going on with your parents? Cool, you want to fight? Let's do it. But you never really got to see them do a lot of interacting. Except for, you really didn't. They had like one big fight and that was kind of it. I'm kind of more interested to see how they get absorbed, if they do, into the JSA. Or if not, if Cindy's like, yeah, never mind, screw you, I'm gonna have my own JSA. And they're like the gray good guys and and they keep showing up at different places. I mean, it would be interesting to develop their dynamic, but I don't think we really got to see enough of it.
We have Artemis and we have Fiddler Jr. and we have Cindy, but we didn't even get Baby Icicle till the last moments of season 2. Yeah. So some people haven't even like come into their own yet. So it's that they're still developing, and what are they going to do is going to be interesting. And frenemies may be that there are 2 justice societies. In addition to there's Pat and wife and Sportsmaster and Tigress living next door to each other. Frenemies is probably going to be on the multiple level things, just like everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of things that you really want to hear about, is how two criminals who just recently escaped from prison end up living next door.
Yeah.
Two criminals who recently escaped to prison, who were in prison because they tried to kill you. now live next door to you.
Yeah.
And come over with a basket of fruit and say, howdy, neighbor.
Yeah.
We're best friends.
We're besties.
Pretty great. Yeah. So good.
Well, of the baddies that you have seen so far, which do you think is the most interesting and has the most development potential?
Well, Shade was the most interesting, but really, they have had so many that have interesting possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody want to add anything, or
I mean, Icicle was a really interesting villain because he wasn't a mwahaha. He was really like, I am trying to make the world a better place. In the ends always will justify the means. And if I have to change how people operate at a cellular level, so be it. So he was interesting. He's gone now. So less in the development side of things, but I do think it'll be interesting to see what they do with his son. Go ahead, Darin.
He's gone for now.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
been doing some whispering from the other side. He gonna be back. I got news for you.
Yeah.
You break a bunch of ice, it melts into water, turns into steam.
Yeah.
Water can always get back together.
That's true. That's true. And his son is still there.
I thought the first season was very reminiscent of the first X-Men movie. He's Magneto because Magneto's plan was, I'm going to make everybody a mutant. Well, that was Icicle's plan. I'm going to make everybody, what was it? He was doing the big
good, like selfless. And
I'm going to
happy.
make everybody become what I want them to be.
Yeah.
Whether they want me to or not. I thought it was he's very Magneto in his way of approaching problems.
Yeah. But yeah, so he might come back. I think Shade, I agree with Elizabeth. I think Shade will continue to be really interesting. I don't know. I am interested to see the creepy people from the rival school and the experiments that they're doing. I think that'll be interesting to see how that develops.
Did y'all look up who he is in comics? I always do that. I just want to see. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Elizabeth. Go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just going to mention that they were the grandparents of what is it? Icicle?
Yes, they're so creepy.
Yes, they look like good white supremacists and everything.
They do. They're so creepy. Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Well, we're kind of coming up on time. Is there anything that anybody would like to add that we haven't already discussed?
Who's the guy, Darin? The bad guy from the school?
So the guy that he's sort of dressed like a Nazi and has kind of a skull looking face. He's actually a DC villain called Mr. Bones.
Oh, okay, yes.
I've never read a Mr. Bones story, but I read up on him a little bit, and he's a particularly creeptastic DC villain. So they've picked a good one. But to go back to Nancy's question, Shade is my favorite villain so far.
Nice.
I love watching that guy. He can sit and sip tea for 15 minutes talking to Brett Bassinger, and I'll watch every second of it because it's awesome.
He'll be so menacing doing it.
The whole time. And just classy. I love it.
So classy as he's threatening your life without even threatening your life.
That's right. Doesn't even have to say it. So good.
Doesn't even have to say it.
Yeah. I think the one thing that I just want to talk about with Arrowverse in general is they spent all of this time in the crossover Crisis on Infinite Earths getting rid of all the extra Earths, and then immediately they're like, but here's Stargirl on another Earth. So I'm still like,
Up. Yeah.
Right, but why though? Like, just don't have made that part of a plot point. Just be like, these Earths are now all collapsed or whatever. But that's a different thing. That's not Stargirl's fault. But it was a little bit like, we just had Crisis and now here's Stargirl, and they definitely aren't the same Earth. Okay. It was a choice.
Well, if nobody has anything else to add, let's go around, tell people where they can find information about you and about your work. And if there's something coming up that you want to highlight, please feel free to do that. Marisa, you want to start?
Sure. I am marisawolf.net or marisawolf.com. They go to the same place. You can find all my books there, everything that's coming up. Also, if you like books and you like dogs, you can follow me on Instagram at bookdogs. I also my husband and I are RVing full time, so also lots of landscape pictures. And a project that's out right now, if you want to check out, is an anthology called You Pay, We Slay. Cindy Berman would love it. It's a bunch of murder contracts. And it's in an urban fantasy world where murder is legal if you pay the right people. So it's a super fun anthology. I really like my short story, and it is spinning off into its own universe. So it'll be fun.
Elizabeth?
Let's see now. If you're looking for an editor, you can find me at emsflynn.com. If you're looking for something unusual to read, you can find me at eilisflynn.com. Now, or just drop me a line. Just tell me what you like about Stargirl. You can find me at either place.
Darin?
I am Darin Kennedy at darinkennedy.com. And all my books, paranormal thriller, contemporary fantasy, are all available through Amazon or through your local bookstore. So if you like tales of psychic dreamscapes based on Russian classical music, or fantasy fights based on the game of chess, or a modern day retelling of A Christmas Carol with a teenage protagonist, check me out.
And you can find me at nancynorthcott.com or on Twitter, where I'm at Nancy Northcott and probably spend more time than is good for me. And my latest releases are the Light Mage Wars Paranormal Romances, and upcoming are stories that tie into the Boar King's Honor historical fantasy trilogy. I'd like to thank all the panelists for participating in this panel, and thank you to everyone who's watching it. And thank you to our sponsors, Heroes Aren't Hard to Find and Heroes Convention. For more information, you can visit www.heroesonline.com. Thank you.